Okay, to start on time, we're going to go ahead and get this thing rolling. My name is Jason Cochran, and I am honored to serve as superintendent at Krum ISD. We had kind of an over-under, just kind of the last lay of the land where we've done a couple of these meetings. You know, the last attendance, I think I had 7 staff members and nobody else. The one before that, we had about 80. Then it kind of fluctuates all over the place. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to make it a priority to be out here tonight. Just to give you an overview of what to expect that we're talking about, and we'll have time to have conversation. And I want to apologize, but also let you know the mic isn't that you can't hear me. We are recording it, and so we want to make sure that we can share it with those who couldn't make it tonight. So that's why I'm going through the mic. But in 2022, the school district passed a bond to keep up with growth. We had a Denton County CAD meeting yesterday, and we're still one of the fastest growing counties in the country right now. You know, so part of our challenge is how do we keep up with this environment to keep up with the growth that's coming to Krum ISD. Our challenge is to prepare for the increase of student growth that's happening to our areas, increase the services we have for kids, and manage our finances appropriately. Some of the things I'll touch on tonight are the difference between just our M&O, which is our maintenance and operations side of our budget, versus our bonded indebtedness, our INS side of the budget. And our INS is voters approved budget is where these projects are coming out of and what is happening with Krum ISD and what we've done over the past 4 years to make best use of the tax dollars that's been awarded to us to keep up with the growth that's happening in Krum. So this slide in 2022 or at the end of 2022, when we were talking about a bond in Krum ISD, this was a slide that we were walking around town saying, hey, here's what's happening in our area. And this was predictions of what's growing in Krum ISD. You know, we're 120 plus square miles. The kicker about this is this was back then 20 active planned developments, 11,000 new homes. We're currently sitting at between 20 to 26,000 new homes platted for our school district. So we are still keeping up with exponential growth. Now we have hit some trends where the new construction market has slowed down a little bit. However, in our area, people are still moving at a rapid pace to North Texas. You know, what we're looking at between us and Ponder and some of the surrounding areas is somewhere between a 9 to a 27% growth on the last assessment that is coming. That will be finalized this summer. So we're still getting the new construction growth that's coming to our areas. As I was talking about, the 2 buckets, you know, when we look at our overall payroll that we get for running the district off of, we have our maintenance and operations. That is our annual budget, which a large percentage of that just goes towards staff. You know, you're looking anywhere between 78 to 88% of that going to staff, and the rest to operate your school district. Anywhere from the electric bill to the volleyball nets. I mean, that's what we use as a small percentage of the overall budget. When you're looking at a bonded indebtedness side, that's approved for the long-term debt on facilities, not necessarily programs or people. You cannot spend that on salaries. And one of the other things, outside of privately owned areas, we can't spend it on roads. I know a lot of times from the taxpayer side, we have other community needs. The school district can only tackle that with what is voted towards the school district to handle for facilities and other voted indebtedness for the school district. It's not for outside of our taxing entity, just the school district. So when we talked about the things we were facing in 2022, we were looking at how do we keep up with the growth and what that looks like. And it was a moving target. At that time, construction rates had increased from one of the last projects I did was $135 a foot, and we entered that bonding season with about $330 a foot. And at the end of 2022, construction was between $500 and $600 a foot. So chasing what we could get with our bonded indebtedness, we looked at what a renovations, new school, and a stadium would look like. You know, tonight I'm not pitching a new plan to you. I'm just reviewing the old plan that was in front of you, what the voter approved. We had 2 propositions, $244 million for Proposition A for campus renovations and new schools, and then Proposition B was for a new stadium. Proposition A passed. So we looked at a indebtedness amount of $244 million and what we were looking at what we could do to keep up with the growth under that umbrella. And as we approached that, the cost of construction started to skyrocket. Initially, we had discussions of just a high school, well, not just a high school, an elementary, and some other projects. When you're looking at a functioning high school to service what we wanted to between 18 to 2,200 students, which we have capacity for safety and we have functional capacity when we talk about construction for schools. So we were looking at keeping up with growth for our areas, how to get a high school that can accommodate around 1,800 kids. When you go new for that, you're looking between $500 and $600 a foot at that time, would have taken up almost the max capacity, about 300,000 square feet of what we were freed up to put into a bond. So we started to pivot and figure out how to stretch that dollar. And so we had several community meetings and then came up with another proposition to take back to the board for some long-range planning. And we came up we finished the addition to Hansel. We talked about grade realignment. We added the Calc Center. We talked about prioritizing career and technology, building the new middle school to accommodate around 1,200 students, and then what a renovation to the high school in addition could possibly look like to take us to that same goal of 1,800 functionality, 2,200 capacity on a new high school, and stretching that dollar as far as we could. And we've achieved nearly all of those goals. This past summer, we started designing the possibilities for what the high school renovation would look like and what the possible additions would look like. And the board just approved the final plans so we can start moving into that construction process. So that's going to start relatively soon. You're going to see some bids come out. You'll see some parking lot work, because that's always a huge issue around here. And then you'll see renovation and construction begin this summer. So I wanted to kind of review some of these projects and where the district currently is. We're right under 2,600 students right now. And you can see that we're having to constantly, things we did, we did adjust the infrastructure. We went to 3 elementaries, so we had some uniformity. And then we had to do some rezoning. You'll see that we'll have to continue with growth, probably about every 36 months, look at rezoning and where kids are going to go to make sure that we can keep up with the functionality of our buildings. So you will see that come back and forth in our community. And then we talked about our timeline. In November of 2024, we started to plan the CTE Center. We just completed that. This past week, the kids are moving into that. That's a phenomenal addition for Krum ISD. We developed the new middle school, and we'll be completing that this June. We did do an addition to the gym foyer. That was as a result of the 1173 expansion. That expansion was going to go about 18 to 12 feet in front of our door there, so we needed to move the entry over for safety. So we completed that project. And then now, we just completed that. What's next? And now we're looking at finishing the middle school, looking at program growth, and really diving into what the possibilities of the new high school could look like and what the project can have the largest impact for our taxing dollar and the most value. So when we talk about Krum Middle School, those of you who haven't seen it, it will be open this summer. We're looking at a late June completion. And that facility, that's the footprint of it. If we ever want to do some future use, there are extra fields to the north of that layout. It does have a stadium there. That stadium is the junior high stadium. There's under 1,500 seat capacity on the one side of the stands there. And then we have functional capacity of that building of about 1,200 kids. It is beautiful inside if you've had a chance to get in there. It's an amazing facility, and it's going to be a source of pride for our community. And then we're looking at different things when you have multi-levels, and if we have to grow, we have room to expand at that building in the future. And then also build it in a mindset that should things need to change and we have to shift to other grade levels, or if that is built out to another high school someday, we have future options in all our new construction projects. You can see it taking shape for what the renderings look like as you drive by. Right now they're finishing the flat work and doing the landscaping pieces and kind of finishing up painting the track in those areas that are weather dependent. If this weather that is happening is because it's on the schedule that we need it not to have the weather, but it's completing that project. And then we start looking at what the high school could possibly look like. So we worked for about a year on several different renderings and attacked the challenges, whether we needed to build behind the school, whether we could go up on the current elevation. We took into account many different facets, including functionality and cost of what it takes to do with this existing building. This building is pre-engineered. How do you take this into a addition piece to it? That created some complexities. So after several renditions, we came out with square foot additions on what that needed to look like. We're currently in about 141,000 square feet, and the addition is going to add about 143,000 square feet, but then there's going to be approximately 70% of the building that has some type of renovation touch to it as well. So we're able to really make an impact on the entire campus here. This is what the layout's going to look like of the footprint of the high school campus. What you'll see different is the building will come out approximately half of the current parking lot that it's in. We're going to come forward and elevate 2 stories. And then we're going to add an athletic wing on the left, and we're going to add another fine arts wing on the right. But the field that's in front of central office is going to hold about 600 parking spots. So we're going to accommodate the parking growth that's happening. To give you an idea, that front area has about 187 current spots in it. We'll be taking half of those away, but we'll be adding about 600 more. The idea is that the band practice pad that they go out there, that's possibly going to be an area for faculty parking. And then the land to the east of the football field we acquired, and that's also going to be a parking lot, and then another field house is going to be added to the back of that east of the parking lot, east of the football stadium. The areas that you can see that are dark shaded are the new areas added onto the building. What we are looking at above area 3, that back part is going to be an extension to the kitchen. If you've been in our high school before, there's a cafeteria, band room, choir room, and then we're going to add on a kitchen, and then we'll expand all those areas to encompass that to be the cafeteria. We're going to need a cafeteria that can hold 3 lunches of approximately 600 kids apiece. So that'll be an extensive area. And then to the right of our PAC Center is where we will build our fine arts wing, which will also double as the required tornado shelter. The facility has to have a tornado shelter that can accommodate all the kids that the building can have capacity with. And then we'll also have that adjacent to the parking lot behind the field house where they would practice their band. And so that would kind of be a shift down to the southern part of the building as opposed to their current area. This is the area that currently exists in the high school, and that's what would be added onto it. You can see that we're coming forward and lining up with a 2-story elevation that will kind of mimic the magnitude of the PAC on the far right. So we'll have that beautiful elevation coming into the facility for Krum. We also, things we had to encounter is the basketball gym. You know, we have to have, you got to remember, this is going to be a facility that's going to have 2,000 kids, 1,800 kids in it. So what does that gym look like? So we have to have a competition gym that will hold that size of a student body in a community. And so that will be a new addition, and that will go south of our current basketball gym. The old basketball gym, which is our current varsity gym, will turn into our auxiliary JV gym. And then the current auxiliary area will be split for indoor sports. There'll be areas for added programs, dance, cheer, wrestling, have an indoor turfed area for indoor practice if we need to move into those facilities, taking full use of the growth of our programs in that end of the building. The second story will consist of more classrooms that will overlook the center area, which is kind of an open concept library as you're coming into the building. And it'll have various science classes and academic classes throughout that area as well. And then more science classes on the first floor on the left side as you come into the building. On the back side of the gym, are also going to have the auxiliary pieces to that, locker rooms, meeting areas, all those things that go into taking account all the extra programs that are in a facility. Another look at the academic wings. The right of the front area is going to be the offices that move into a building that takes for functionality from anywhere from attendance to counseling to PEMS clerks, none of the kids in here have ever been there, but we're going to need a place for ISS. There'll be a classroom there, but you kids don't know about that. And then there's a closer look at what the cafeteria would look like and some of the modifications on the back end for the functionality of this building. And then the addition in the dark green is the new kitchen. The fine arts area, like I said, will also double as a tornado shelter, and we'll have band and choir in that facility, and it'll also just be adjacent to the Fine Arts Center and make the most utilization out of that place. That is an interesting piece because there is a requirement for the tornado capacity of a building and a tornado shelter being added. So that's going to be made to a high standard for student safety for the rest of the building to encompass, but be utilized for our fine arts area. There's a look at what the front elevation rendering would look like, where it takes the front elevation moving into the second part of the building. Some of the things when we are working with our contractors and architects is how do you make that look as seamless as possible. There's going to be some indoor courtyard areas where that transition takes place to make sure that the building as it runs in seamlessly to the other building, but also they're looking at some potential modifications as they really get down to the nitty-gritty on cost-saving measures for this. As we've designed this project and looked through, we've met with classroom teachers, we've met with directors, and we've constantly been on shaving the pennies off this to go as far with your tax dollars as we can. The overall project, last couple renderings are just some elevation sketches where you can see the magnitude and kind of the presence that comes into our community as you come into the high school and matches the ambiance that's created with the new middle school. That would be going into the athletic area. That's a look of what the gym would look like. It's more of a arena style gym. The two side areas of that slide back so we can have multiple courts for practice going opposite of your competition side, and then the permanent bleachers have storages and offices on the other side to utilize the space. Making that a showpiece for our community as well. We do have a overview that they put together for us. I just want to let you know that this whole process, and I feel like I've thrown a lot at you real fast. We wanted to impact, not only wanted to, we have the requirement for you guys to impact all levels to keep every kid from pre-K to high school in the best environment possible. Taking the original platform and stretching this dollar, the board, the designers, the architects, everybody that's gone step by step over this for the past 4 years have done their due diligence with your tax dollars to affect as many kids as possible and keep up with this growth. We want to have a place where people take pride and make this a destination style district, and also have a facility that can give kids programming second to none. So the next phase of this is to begin production of this facility, and then we're going to start focusing back onto elementaries. After this is all said and done, we've stayed within the capacity of the original issuance of the bond. We should have between $20 and $27 million left out of that 244, and the idea, and I say idea, is even over the past 4 years, we've had to call audibles based on market cost. So right now, if you're saying today what the best plan would be for that cost of construction to adjust for the last 27 million, what we are looking at, because we're moving out of that middle school, taking the current middle school, and you'll see for a period of time, we are going to move some special ed services down there and utilize that area for the short-term gap. But as we work with the designers for the high school project, there's going to be several different renditions of how we maneuver the kids through construction. So we'll have flexibility of utilizing that space if we have to take a wing of the building and run it out of the middle school. And there'll be things that'll change over the next 24 months with the construction projects where we'll use that facility. After that is complete, what we're looking at is using that money to take the middle school and remodel that middle school and make it utilized for an elementary school, and move Dodd Elementary across the road, which will double the size. It will give facilities, gym, fine arts. It's separated where we can have early childhood. In the courtyard, we can have playgrounds, and then utilize that for double the capacity that currently holds at Dodd, and then probably move special services over to Dodd building as we grow to accommodate 5, 6, 7, 10,000 kids in our district. But stretching that tax dollar as far as we can to hit as many touch points as we can to keep our community accommodating the kids that are coming to our area. So that's the tomorrow plan. Now, like I said, we may come back and have another community meeting like this and say, here's what's affordable, here's not what's affordable. There may be a point where if we take that money and move a little bit more, building another elementary school off 380 might make more sense. But if you're looking what Plan A is for the next step, right now in our current market, that's what the board of discussion is looking at for the last elementary piece of that. But right now, that's the end of the high school current plans. The next step, we did recently put out a bid. That parking lot will be the first phase. That big parking lot will be the first phase that we're going to have finished before we move into any construction on the front parking lot here. So that actually should start in the next 60 days. And so we'll have that piece finished. We are taking, those of you who have little kids, we are looking at what to do and looking at an area of our current property that we are building the middle school on and saying, can we take the football goalpost and make a practice field for KYSA so they can have some opportunity to keep working out probably north of the football field that we just installed over there at that facility. So Coach and I went over there and kind of scoped out some areas to put the practice field for the kids and make sure we have a place to keep accommodating our community on all levels. They put together an overview, kind of a fun video to look at. Do you want to hit play now? Or you've tried to do it 9 times probably, and I keep talking. And one more thing. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. The library is going to be the centerpiece, an open concept around all the classrooms. That bell is actually at the museum and is going to come back. That's from the original school. That's outside the gym. Okay, so I threw a lot at you. That's the overview. The time period is, like I said, we will start exterior construction very, very soon. The number one priority is to make sure we have the parking lined up as we take that priority piece. The behind-the-scenes work that you'll see and you'll get a lot of communication on is movement of children, safety, all those plans. A lot of that, having done some of this before, I don't want to say it's on the fly, but we have to see what one phase looks like, and then we will modify and adapt to make sure that the kids' movement and safety is going to be the priority, but communication is going to have to be the key with the families that are involved. So we're going to all have some headaches with traffic, with movement of kids, those type things, but that is kind of the price to pay with what we're having to go through. But those plans will move and shift, but our goal will be to communicate that as much as possible as we approach the next upcoming year. But what you should see is in August coming back, and there should be some construction already happening on the front end of the building as we move over the summer. So any questions?